Mr. Chair, we are now live.
Yeah, amazing. Good evening, everyone. And welcome to the Town of Ajax Committee of Adjustment meeting for Wednesday, March the 29th. This meeting of the Committee of Adjustments is being held electronically and live streamed on the internet pursuant to the Committee of Adjustment terms of reference and meeting procedures. All regular practices and procedures of the committee continue to apply during this electronic meeting. If we encounter any technical difficulties, we may take a brief recess while they are resolved. Thank you for your patience, and we'll now proceed with the meeting. I'll now like to call this meeting to order. And before I do that, I'd like to make a land acknowledgement. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is situated within the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas, more specifically the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, signatories of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous peoples. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action and acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. Before moving on to the application portion of the meeting, I would like to confirm across the committee whether there are any disclosures of interest from members of the committee.
None.
Ken?
None.
Bernadette?
None.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So then we will proceed, seeing none. And before we move forward into today's applications, a little bit of housekeeping from last month's meeting, and I would like to ask for if there's a motion on the committee for the adoption of the minutes from our previous meeting that would have been held on February the 22nd, 2023. So do I have anybody that's able to put forth a motion for that?
I'll make the motion to adopt the minutes of the February 22nd, 2023 Committee of Adjustment.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian. Do we have a seconder on that from the committee? Perfect. Thank you, Ken. And if there's no other questions, all those in favor, please raise your hand to the motion. Okay. So I think that's all beautiful. So that's 5 in favor, none against. So the motion is now carried. Perfect. The committee, so I'll quickly, before we get into today's proceedings, I'll maybe just do a quick update on the mandate of the committee in case you weren't aware, if this is your first time. So the mandate of the committee is that the committee is bound by the Planning Act to assess each application in front of it today based upon its ability to meet the 4 tests. The tests are that the application is minor in nature, it's desirable and appropriate in development or use of the lands that it's on, and finally, in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. The process for tonight's meeting will be conducted in the following manner. The applicant or agent will be called upon, and at their option, they may provide a brief description of the minor variance application that they have applied for when it is their turn on the agenda. The committee members may ask questions of the applicant and or agent, after which anyone with a direct interest in the application will be given the opportunity to speak either for or against the application. Once a motion is put forward by a committee, there will be no further input from the applicant or anyone having an interest in the application. After a decision is made, notice will be sent out and there will be a 20-day appeal period. The decision of the committee may be appealed to the Ontario Line Tribunal, or the OLT, by the applicant or a specified person or public body as outlined in the Planning Act. Please note that the third-party appeals are not permitted. After 20 days, the decision after the 20 days, the decision will become final and binding. If a building permit or other approvals are required as part of the application, they may be filed for during that appeal period. However, no permits or approvals will be issued until the appeal period is over and the decision becomes final and binding. A respectful decorum during this evening's proceedings is expected of myself and all present at all times. And at this point, I'd like to introduce the committee members and staff on hand this evening. I'll start with myself. My name is Wasif Ahmed. I am the chair of the Committee of Adjustments. And I'll look to my colleagues to maybe just raise their hand when I call out their name, just so the people know who can they put a name to a face. Also on the committee I have is Tomas Baca, Ken Elliott, Brian Hayes, Bernadette Santiago. This is your committee members for this evening. We also have alongside with the committee some staff members from the town of Ajax, starting with Eric Simpson, Senior Planner and Secretary Treasurer of the committee, Sarah Moore, who is the Legislative Specialist, and Josh Estrella, who's the Planner with the town of Ajax. Perfect. All right, so that completes our mandate and review of the committee. So let's get into business with the application. So the first application for tonight's meeting is application A623 for 93 Hearst Drive for D Techline International. And I'm just going to get my notes pulled up here, so just give me a minute.
Hi, good night.
Hi, good evening.
Yeah. Good evening. I'm the agent for 93 Hearst Drive. My name is Daniel Allen. Live in Brampton, 66 Mortal Avenue, Brampton.
Okay, perfect. And can I just get you to just spell your last name as well?
Oh, it's Allen. A as in Apple, L as in Larry, L as in Larry, A as in Apple, N as in Nancy.
Okay. Perfect. So I'm going to get you to hold that thought for 1 second, and Michelle. And what I'll do is I'll just quickly, for the benefit of everybody else, just remind everybody what this minor variance application is about. So again, this is application A623, and it is for 93 Hearst Drive, and the bylaw requirement for that this application is seeking relief from. There's two bylaws. One is section 4.2, which is encroachment into required yards, that uncovered steps leading to or from a principal building or platform are not permitted within a required interior side yard. And the second bylaw requirement that is being sought variance from is section 6.2.2 for zone standards in an R1F zone, where it states a minimum setback from an interior solid lot line of 0.3 meters on one side and 1.2 meters on the other for detached dwellings, with a minimum aggregate setback between the dwellings of 1.2 meters. And the relief that's being requested against these two bylaws is to permit uncovered steps leading to a below grade entrance within the north interior side yard with a minimum setback of 0.2 meters from the interior side lot line. And before we look at the application a little bit further, I'll just ask my fellows at the town staff to confirm whether notice was served to the immediate vicinity of this address at 93 Hearst Drive, and were there any responses from individuals or companies or businesses in the area?
Mr. Chair, notice was served and no correspondence was received.
Perfect. Thank you, Eric. All right, Ms. Allen. So again, the committee has the application in front of it. Are you aware of the fact that the committee also has in front of it a recommendation from the town of Ajax planners in a report that they've outlined for this application? And in there are 3 conditions as well. Have you had a chance to receive or review this this report?
Yeah, I think, is it the report already shows the pictures? And I think one of us saying to relocate the meter.
That's right.
Yes. Yes, let me see. I think I see the report with a meter, but which other condition is there in this paper?
Yeah, so I can actually read out
Yes,
the
please.
conditions. So
Yes, please.
absolutely, and again for your benefit and others on the call. So the committee, the staff recommends in its report that the committee approve the application subject to the following 6 conditions, and the conditions are that the subject variants apply only to the property municipally known as 93 Hearst Drive, and as illustrated in the figures contained herein, those are the pictures that we were talking about earlier, or this decision shall become null and void. That an unobstructed pedestrian path of travel to or from the uncovered steps be maintained at all times on the subject property, or this decision shall become null and void. That an unobstructed pedestrian path of travel from the rear yard be maintained at all times on the subject property, or this decision shall become null and void. That an existing utilities be relocated as necessary in construction with the applicable utility agencies and the town's building services section to a location that does not impede access to or from the uncovered steps, or this decision shall become null and void. That the owner applicant maintain the existing drainage on the property, or this decision shall become null and void. And that the owner applicant also obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building services, or this decision shall become null and void. Those were the conditions, Mr. Allen. Are
Okay. Yeah.
Are you comfortable with those?
Yes. No.
Do you have any questions about any of them?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, perfect. So at this point, I will give you the opportunity, since you know the application the best around here. So I'll get you maybe give you a few minutes to perhaps explain as to what is being sought for and why.
Okay. Well, as far as I know for sure, the client wanted the side entrance to have some other exit to come from the side to get into the building. Maybe later in the future he may have some other plans for the basement, but he decided to go for this side entrance first. In terms of the setback, there was no way we could avoid this 0.2, because we need a minimum of 34 inches width for that below grade entrance. So we could only get 0.2. I mean, it could be minor in nature, but I'll leave it up to the committee boards to decide that. And we have at least 1.3 meters from the below grade entrance to the neighbor's house. Just in case if any extra passages have to happen there, that could happen. And we have 2 steps, one going in and also one going up to go towards the back. So anybody who needs to get access to the back, we're able to get there. And as we say, the meter will just have to be relocated because it is considered as being an unobstructed object in the way. So that's fine. That's basically what I'm going to say for this presentation.
Okay, no, that was very helpful. Thank you, Sean. So at this point, let me open it up to the committee members for any questions based on the application or the staff report. If you do, just put up your hand and I'll hand over control of the floor. Sure, Tomas.
A question for the staff. Is there any safety hazard because there is no railing alongside the opening?
Through the chair. If there's a requirement for railing, that will be caught through the building permit process. So we don't specifically condition it or anything, because if it is a requirement, it's something that's going to be as part of the permit when the permit gets issued.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Tomas. Bernadette?
I just want to confirm if staff could assist that there's no current building permit in place for the basement itself.
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Ken?
My question is it correct that the door and the steps already exist?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions from committee? Brian?
Was there any particular reason why we constructed the client constructed the steps without a permit?
I think no. I think there is a permit in, but it hasn't gotten approved yet, because we're waiting on the. Well, lately we found out that we had to go to the committee of adjustment, so that ended up happening late. And I think the contractor is the one who hurried up and did this thing quickly. The owner is like inexperienced at certain things, and the contractor just ended up building this thing quick to go, I guess, to finish, to move on to the next job.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may ask another
Yes,
question.
of course.
I just want to confirm that there is currently access to the rear yard. Is that correct? Or does that still have to be put in place?
Through the chair. So condition number 3.
Right.
That specifically, but the way the steps have been designed and will continue to be designed once a permit is issued is they go up and down, so that ensures the continuous access. That's often a requirement that we seek because for this property, the yard the steps are located in are the larger side yard.
Right.
So that's where we'd want to maintain access. So the access to the yard would be maintained through the orientation of the steps.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clear for the record. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's actually highlighted, if I'm not mistaken, Eric. These, I'm assuming, are recent pictures in Figure 3 as well. So to Bernadette's point, there's a record of it, but there is access currently. Okay, good question. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
The next door neighbors area there, is that their only means of getting into their backyard?
To the chair, I don't have a survey for that property, so I'm not entirely sure what the setback is on both of their sides, but likely that is the shorter setback of their 2 side yards, because typically the way it works is you have one large on one property and then the adjacent one would have their smaller one, and like vice versa. So they have 2 side yards. I just don't know the sizes of them.
Yeah, it just being as we just came through winter, it's such that if this side entry is going to be used, and there's a heavy snowfall, you're going to have to shovel the snow out on the client side and bring it out front, and not put it in the neighbor's means to get to their own backyard. It's an observation.
Yeah, good point. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, seeing none at the moment. I'll open it up to the public or anybody else on the call that may have anything to add to the application, either for or against it. Is there anybody in attendance that would like to speak for or against the application A623?
No, Mr. Chair, there's no one present.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sarah. And if there isn't, and if there aren't any other questions or comments for in regards to this application, I look to the committee perhaps for a motion to move forward to either approve or not the application A623. So is there anybody on the committee that's willing to put forth a motion?
I'll start off.
Sure.
I make motion to approve minor variance application A6/23.
Yeah, perfect. And is there a seconder for that motion?
Mr. Chair, it's Bernadette. I can second that.
That'll be great. Thank you, Bernadette. So we now have a motion and a seconder. Is there any comments or discussion on the motion from the committee? Okay, seeing none, then I will take a vote. All those in favor of the application and the motion that's been put forth by Brian, seconded by Bernadette, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, So we've got full 5, and the motion has been carried. So, Mr. Allen, feel free to let the client know or the applicant know that the motion has been approved here for the minor variance A623, and that it will be subject to the appeal period as I had outlined at the beginning. Okay, did you have any questions?
Okay, no, I don't have any question. Thank you. I
Okay.
didn't want to know. All right, thank you.
Awesome. And now for the rest of the meeting, you're free to go, or if you would like to stay and watch the rest of the evening activities, you can.
Okay,
But I'll leave that up to you, and thank you for your time.
thank you. Okay.
All right. Then the committee, I'd like to move forward with the next application. That would be A723 for 203 or 203 5th Concession Road. The application was submitted by Savio and Emily Vaz. And the minor variance that's being requested is to permit a total maximum gross floor area of 105 square meters for all accessory buildings and structures. So as we get caught up on this, just give me a moment. I'll let everybody pull up their versions if you have one in front of you. And while we do the same on my side. And this application was, I believe we have somebody in attendance as well, right, Sarah?
Yep, actually, I'm the owner of the property, Savio.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Savio. So I'm just going to remind myself and everybody else that the staff has written a report on this application that that recommends approval. It's on the screen for those of you that are looking at the Zoom screen share. It is recommending approval on the subject that there's 3 conditions: that the subject variance apply only to the property municipally known as 103 5th Concession and the accessory buildings as illustrated on the drawings submitted with this application, which are shown in figure 2, or this decision shall become null and void, that the owner or applicant maintain the existing drainage on the property, or this decision shall become null and void, and that the owner and applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building services, or this decision shall become null and void. Mr. Vaz, are you familiar? Have you received this report, and are you familiar and in agreement with those conditions?
Yep, I received it and totally in agreement.
Okay, wonderful. So before I go further, let me hand over the stage to you for maybe giving us a quick briefing on some background on this minor variance application. I'll just confirm with town staff that notice was served in the vicinity of 203 5th Concession and whether there was any responses received.
Mr. Chair, notice was served and no correspondence was received.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Eric. So, Mr. Vaz, so I'll hand it over to you to perhaps brief the committee this evening and providing some background of what's raising this application.
Sure, it's actually it's a pool house kind of thing. So it's basically because of these property being in total sunlight kind of thing. So there's need of shade, and that's one of the reasons for developing the accessory building. We do have a cabana on site as well. It's a 3-acre property as well, just to let you know. It's on the countryside and it's one of the estate homes. So that's the reason why we're asking for the variance, because we have the land, but we can't just put up a structure without the approvals, obviously without the variance. So.
Okay, perfect. So at this point, I will open it up to the committee for any questions or concerns that they may have with the application, either to staff or to the applicant, Mr. Vaz. So committee members, if you have any questions, just again, raise your hand and I'll hand over the floor to you for questions.
I just have a general question, Mr. Vaz. So you're gonna be using this area for sitting inside and staying out of the sun? Is that it?
I wish I could, trust me. It's because it's actually, if you visit the property, it's like pretty open, right? So there's no trees. I would love the city to put more trees on my property. You're most welcome to do so, but it's just because of this, it's so vast kind of thing, and then you have this heated area which like heats up pretty high in summer. Love the heat, but I need some shade on the property, so that's the reason why for putting up the structure too.
Okay. I was looking at the size of it. It's a fairly large structure. I thought it might be something where you can store all your stuff.
It is. Partly it's also that because the behind is going to be storage area because we don't have any more space for storage. And the cabana is already full with all the, stuff that we put out in the summer. So.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Brian. And any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, seeing none. Is there anybody in attendance on the call that would like to speak for or against application A723 as being presented?
Mr. Chair, there's no one from the public in attendance.
Okay, thanks for confirming, Eric. And if there isn't anybody else on to speak for or against, and the committee has no more questions, I'll look to the committee for a motion, perhaps, for application A723.
I'd like to move.
Sure, go ahead, Ken. Sorry, did I catch Ken first or Tomas? I'm sorry. I saw both hands up at the same time on my second screen, so one or the other.
So I'll move approval of the application for minor variance A723, subject to the conditions as recommended by staff.
Okay. Can I get a seconder to that?
I will second, Mr. Chair.
Perfect. Thank you, Tomas. I appreciate that. So we now have the motion forth and the application seconded. Can I look for anybody that may have any questions or comments about the motion itself? Okay, seeing none, then I will move to the voting process. So all those in favor on the committee that for the application and the motion as presented, please raise your hands. Okay, so we've got all five. And so, Mr. Vaz, your application has been approved at the committee, subject to the 20-day appeal period as I had outlined at the beginning of the meeting. And if you need more help with that, the staff can for sure help you with any questions you may have. Okay. Did you have any other further questions, Mr. Vaz?
No, I'm absolutely fine. Thank you.
Okay. Well, once again, you're more than welcome to stay if you would like for the rest of the meeting, or you're also free to go and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
All right. So moving right along, the next and third application that the committee has in front of it is application A3823 for 48 Hearn Crescent in Ajax. And this motion is seeking a bylaw variance from to permit uncovered steps leading to a below grade entrance within the south interior side yard with a minimum setback of 0.4 meters from the interior side lot line. And the application has been put forth by Rely Solution Inc. And do I have somebody in from the applicant or an agent here to represent the application?
Hi, through the chair, this is Shivang Thorika. I'm the owner of the Rely Solution Inc. and I'm actually put the application in on behalf of the owner of this particular property.
Okay, good evening, Shivang. So, Shivang, the committee does have a recommendation report from town staff that is recommending approval of this particular application. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I'm aware of that. Yeah.
Okay. So then similarly, you would be aware that there are a series of 6 conditions that are also part of the report. Are you aware of those as well?
Yes, I'm aware of those ones. Yes.
Okay. So appreciate the acknowledgement. And then are you in agreement with that the application can meet all 6 conditions?
Yes, I've gone through the points and application can meet all 6 points.
Okay, great. So at this point, I'll hand it over to you, Mr. Shivang, to perhaps brief the committee in the next couple of minutes on the background in regards to this, this application, please.
Sure. So we actually put this application before as well for the minor variance, and it got approved. Actually, there was some discrepancy happened on the site plan from our side, and then we had to we put that the numbers were a little bit not correct, which the inspector pointed out on the site, and he told that you need to reapply for the minor variance, and so the number was the exact number was 0.48. which we actually shown in this case. And he just, all the inspections were done, all the construction is done. And now he just told us that you go through and get the minor variance for this particular portion, and we'll be okay to close off the permit for the entrance.
Okay.
Thank
All right. And can you just remind the committee what was the previously approved setback?
Actually, it was approved roughly around 1 meter for that one, but that was a 1.17, but now it's a 0.48.
Okay, so that's the delta. Okay, so it's 0.9 was what was approved, and actual construction has made it 0.4 and change. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chimang. So there may be, stay tuned. There may be some more questions from my colleagues on this. So let me open it up to the committee and see if there's any questions from the Committee of Adjustment members. If you do, just raise your hand and I'll recognize you, hand it over. Okay. Just while we're doing that and seeing whether anybody has any questions, I don't think I have asked yet my town staff friends whether this notice was served for this application at 48 Hearn, and were there any responses?
Correct. Notice was served and no responses were received, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Eric. All right. I'm not seeing anybody with questions on the committee unless, no, I don't. All right. So I personally don't have any other questions either. So if there aren't any other questions, then I will look to see whether there's anybody on the call that's here to speak again, either for or against application A823 for 48 Hearn.
Mr. Chair, there's no one from the public in attendance.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Eric, for confirming. And if that's the case, then I'll look to the committee for a motion for this application. Okay, Tomas?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the application A8-23, subject to all staff conditions, as it is minor in nature, desirable for the appropriate development and use of the property, and is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and the zoning bylaw.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Tomas. Appreciate the motion. Do I have a seconder from the committee? Okay, I think I saw Ken's hand. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ken. And if there aren't any other questions or discussions, seeing none, we can move along to the voting process. So all those in favor on the committee, please raise your hand. Okay, so seeing everybody, perfect. That's perfect 5. And so, Mr. Chimang, the application has been approved at this evening's Committee of Adjustments meeting. And again, subject to the appeal period, as I had outlined at the beginning. And again, if you don't recall that, you can ask your town planner to walk you through what that is.
Thank you, Chair members. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Have yourself a good evening, Mr. Chimang.
Thank you.
All right, so that will, with that application, that concludes our third and final application for the evening. I'd like to maybe just look to committee or staff to see if there's any other business that we would like to review with the committee.
Nothing for me.
Okay.
Nothing.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that's if that's the case, then I'd look for a motion to adjourn for this evening's application. And my Zoom is having some issues, so the video of you guys is having an issue. So I don't think I'm able to see all of you. If I can get a motion,
I'll move
okay,
motion to
Brian.
adjourn.
Okay, perfect, Brian. Do we have a seconder on that?
I have a
I'll
question.
second.
Oh, sorry. I think I heard somebody had a question. Was that Ken?
My question is, if we do this, are we closing the public portion and are we staying online?
That's correct, Ken.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. And we had, I think Tomas seconded.
Yes,
So
I
all those
second the
in
motion.
favor, if you can raise your hand. Perfect. And then we'll do a quick vote. If you're in favor, just raise your hand. Okay, perfect. So seeing everybody, that's great. So the motion has been carried and the meeting for Wednesday, March the 29th has now been adjourned, and the public portion will be closed.